One of the most interesting conversations, that I've had with people over the years is how they learned what they learned about sex. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I've been counseling men and women for many years now. And one of the things I'd like to have a discussion with you all about is, how did you first learn about sex? Did you have a conversation with your parents about it? What was that conversation with your parents like? And what I have found is that more often than not, people don't really have um, a sit down educational conversation with their parents about it. Some children learn about it, sex, and from health class. A lot of us, learned from like HBO or Cinemax cable television. So you kind of watch movies and got what you could from that. Um, and others of us sort of stumbled through it with our first partners. And, there's a difference between how boys and girls are taught about it, or talked to about it, or the messages that they received about, sex and intimacy. So, for example, sex is usually condoned with boys versus with girls, especially black girls. Black girls are usually taught to, focus on your studies and don't focus on that. Or, it could be the opposite of where people are introduced to sex very early. They're allowed to have sex in their parents' house. There's no sort of real parameters around it, so on and so forth. So I'm curious to know how many of you, your parents sat down with you, taught you about birth control, taught you how to put on condoms, taught you about like sexual hygiene and practices, and so on and so forth. Now I'd like to have a discussion, about, just some things to keep in mind, just some quick and dirty tips for you if you decide to have sex, just some things that kind of may help you along to stay safe, healthy, and happy, and to have a good time too. So, number one is, if it's running and dripping like a cold, don't touch it. I know that sounds crazy, but stick to that motto. Always inspect everything. And if it's running and dripping like a cold faucet, whatever, don't touch it. There's something going on, and, you know, they need to go see somebody that's not you, preferably a medical professional. Number two, um, vanilla sex is okay. It's okay to just have just regular, degular sex. That is okay and fine. You don't need to be swinging from a chandelier, having multiple people in your bedroom, doing all these tricks and things like that for to keep your person happy. You don't need to do that. You shouldn't need to do that. Regular sex is okay. I know that. You can have toys and things like that. I'm certainly not shaming that, but there seems to be a lot of stigma around like we need to do more, and especially in a culture that's very hypersexual, there is this idea that we must be doing all these tricks and inviting all these people and doing this and that to keep your man, your woman, everybody stimulated. You don't need to be doing all that. Vanilla sex is fine as long as you're both engaged with it and you're both having a good time. It's fine. Number three, sex is not like what you see in Hollywood. The wind is not going to be blowing through your hair. You're not going to be hearing some sort of sexy saxophone in the background unless you have it on your radio. But the first time, especially first, second, and third time, maybe even, it might be a little awkward. You guys are learning about each other. You're learning about each other's bodies and so on and so forth. It's okay for things to be awkward. Before a person even touches you, you need to be having a conversation about consent, where you do and don't like to be touched, what is and what isn't okay. You most definitely need to be um, having a look at each other's my chart and talking about whether or not you have an STD. If you have an STD that's an incurable STD, have a conversation around that. Educate your partner if they need to be educated. If they don't want to have it, that's fine. Let them go on their way. Don't take it as a personal slight. Just, you have to understand that if you do have an STD, a person has a right to consent, but they also have the right to refuse to, and that's their prerogative. Don't ever allow someone to talk you into doing something that you aren't comfortable with in order to stay with them. So, for example, polyamory, if you're not okay with poly, and I'm just using this as an example, don't open up that discussion for it. Don't ponder, don't think, just say, I'm not okay with that. And send your person on their merry way if that is something that they want to explore. But don't feel pressured to um, want to try these things and consent to something that you're not okay with. I don't know where we at 5, 6. Um, if you if you're if you're having sex with somebody and you can't take off your clothes or be intimate with them, and you're not a sex worker or something like that, I'm talking about a person that you're in a relationship with. If you can't take off your clothes, you don't want them touching you or kissing you. You don't need to be having sex until you work through whatever it is you've got going on. I can't diagnose, I don't know what's going on with, people that watch me. I don't know how many people watch me on the internet, but if you've got some issues, you need to just stop what you're doing and you need to figure out what's going on and resolve that issue before proceeding further with anybody. You need to make sure that you're aligned with whoever your partner is on sexual values. If at any time those values change from the other person, you need to stop having sex with them. So one would be infidelity. If you're like more of a monogamous person and you don't believe in infidelity and you guys are okay at the beginning, like they're singing the same tune, and if at some point that changes, you need to stop having sex with that person. And if I were you, I would not re-engage with that person, because anybody that you're re-engaging with, they're putting their health at risk. They're putting your health at risk. And unfortunately, when it comes to sexual health, you got a lot of things out there that you can't walk back. And I'm just going to leave it there. There's some mistakes that can't be corrected, and people don't care. They'll get up and move on to another partner like nothing and leave you with the gift that keeps on giving. Stay on top of your health. Go see your doctor, have your PAPs and everything. Have everything checked once a year, more if necessary. Don't engage with partners, that don't allow you to see their feet, or they've always got something going on with their feet. Like they'll never let you see it. They got socks on. There's a possibility that that person could have an STD. Syphilis, for example, latent stage syphilis, it shows up on the feet. Or if that person doesn't take care of their feet, their mouth, their penis, their butt, through proper hygiene practices, that is a sign that you don't need to proceed forward with. You need to have a conversation with your partner about hygiene, diseases, and pH imbalances and things like that could be spread by improper hygiene. Particularly, a person feces, if people don't wipe properly, that kind of stuff can mess you up. If your vagina doesn't feel right after you've laid down with somebody, go get checked immediately, and continue checking. Get second, third, fourth, and fifth opinions if you need to, if your doctor dismisses or minimizes you. There are so many things that can be spread through sexual contact with a partner: vaginitis, yeast infections, group B strep, herpes, gonorrhea, chlamydia. Those things are big ones. And if you have standardized blood work on STDs, unfortunately, you can still go undetected, because there's other tests outside of the standardized sexual transmitted disease test where it may show up. It may not show up on the standardized. Go see a doctor, get yourself checked, and talk to your physician. Hope this helps. If you like what you hear, definitely check out the link in my bio for my podcast and sign up for my news.